First thing I'm going to do is The Currents. The Currents is directed by Milagros Mumenthaler, I believe out of Argentina. We have a bunch of characters here, but the main character is Lena, she's almost in every scene, I would say. Lena is played by Isabel Aimé Gonzalez-Sola. Pedro is her husband, played by Esteban Bigliardi. And then there's a bunch of other people. Honestly, Lena is your main focus of this movie. I'm going to read you the IMDb synopsis. I don't usually do that, but in this case, it might be helpful because it's a very esoteric movie and it might be tough to nail down. It says, during a business trip to Geneva, Lena's impulsive decision leads to perilous consequences. Back in Buenos Aires, she tries to bury her secret, but the dark past she left behind resurfaces to threaten her current life. Now that's a very dramatic synopsis, and it plays out as much more of an artsy slow burn than that synopsis would make you think. So let me give you the basic beginning, the setup here. The setup is you see Lena, and all this is also basically filmed in a very moody, very beautiful way. I was really struck by the kind of the way this whole movie is staged. And at the beginning, you see her, and she's in Geneva. You don't know that at the time, but it's obvious she's somewhere in Europe. And she's got a brand new award, like one of these glass awards. I wasn't sure exactly what her job was. Even watching the movie, it was hard to figure out. It's actually an art director, something like an art director or a artist or a photographer of models, whatever it is. She's something in the art community. Anyway, she got this little award. She walks out, immediately throws it in the trash, and you see her walk around the streets of Geneva. And the way it's filmed and the way the audio is in this movie, it's very evocative. It's like the wind, you're hearing the wind and the natural sounds, and she seems lost in a haze. And at some point she ends up in front of a shop window, and she's looking at this little needlepoint of these women, and there's this old-time sewing machine there. And on the way there, she'd walked over a bridge over one of the rivers there. On the way back, she walks back over the bridge from a long shot, and as she's standing there, you see her nonchalantly climb over the railing and jump in. Smash cut to her being dried off. She's obviously survived the fall, and you will see a flashback of that whole sequence in Geneva later in the movie, by the way. So you get a little more, not only a little more of an idea, like where her mindset was and what she was doing there, but she obviously survived. You don't know why she did it. You don't know why she decided not to keep doing what she was doing, because obviously she's healthy, at least physically now. And then you basically are back in her home in Buenos Aires. And then the rest of the movie is this examination of a woman. I don't say she's in a midlife crisis, or if she's maybe having more of a mental breakdown, or just fighting with mental illness, instability, compulsion, phobia. There's a lot of things going on. What you do find out very quickly, though, is she is very afraid, like hugely anxious when it comes to water, which you find very strange because you just saw her jump into the river. So I guess that would have been a really extreme reaction for herself, because you see things like she won't even take a shower. You see her going to the bathroom at some point, like she's going to go take a shower, and she's just trying to use the sink to wash the edge of her hair, and she is in full panic meltdown, to the point that a little later in the movie, you see her going to a hairdresser to basically just get her hair washed and get a sponge bath, because she can't do it herself, and she has to be given gas to literally knock her out to do it. So as you can guess from this very beginning description of this movie, there's some serious stuff going on with her. She's married. She's very successful. She seems to be living a very, not a wealthy, but definitely upper middle class life. She has a very nice place. Seems like to have a very nice professional job. She seems to have a loving husband, a really cute and loving daughter. Daughters, I don't know, it just seems like she has a loving relationship with everyone around her, but she is disassociating with the world around her. And what makes this movie really tough is that you're with her almost 100% of the time, and you don't get voiceover, you don't get a real window into exactly what she's struggling with and exactly what her issues are and how she's thinking about them now and how she's either coping or not coping with them. All you know is that early incident that we saw of her jumping into the river, she has other thoughts of a similar vein. And at all times in this movie, you're worried that she may be ready to go down that path again. And you see her just, you always see her almost like she's gonna lose her grip on reality. And you never get too fully subjective. You don't go to the point where you're seeing like visions from her, although you come on the edge slightly there. It's more like the whole mood of the movie is almost disassociated, where she may stop and just focus on a painting, or she may focus on the trees blowing in the wind outside the window, and the whole movie kind of falls into that kind of reverie that she's going through, and it makes you think that you're really getting a feel of her mental state. In some points I was thinking this movie is almost like, in almost the way that David Lynch movies are, not as surreal as that, but when you're in a David Lynch movie, it feels very odd, but you always feel like David Lynch knows what he's saying to you and why he's saying it to you, and you just trust that he's there. Even if you don't quite get it, you feel like, if I try long enough or I keep watching it, I will get it. I feel like that with this movie. As much as I was frustrated, like not understanding her and not feeling like real, like solid resolution, I always felt like the filmmaker was really in control of what they were showing us and what they were giving us and how they were presenting it to us. I felt like they had a precise vision that they were trying to present to us. Now, does that make it an interesting and satisfying movie? I would say to lots of people, no. Now, if you're into, like I said again, really artistic, with a capital A, slow burn, very atmospheric, very enigmatic sorts of movies, then this could definitely be your cup of tea. I would say I'm halfway there. I would say I enjoyed it enough to recommend it, but I did definitely want more from it. Now, that's not to say if I saw it again, I might get more from it. I want to point out a couple of things. So there's a lot of clues in what's going on with her and what is happening to her towards the end. Is there a resolution? I think there is. I think there's a turn in her character. Why it exactly happens, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to go into spoilers because I don't think I can spoil it because I don't think I quite understand it. But I feel like this is the kind of movie, if I discussed it or watched it more or read more about it, it might unravel in a way that makes it more satisfying to me and make it a higher recommend. At this point, like I said, I'm probably going to go 3.5 stars, which is pretty generous, I think, because I think a lot of people are going to be very frustrated by this movie. Once again, judge what kind of movies you like. And if you like real meat and potatoes movies or real bold and straightforward movies, whatever the form they're coming in, horror or action or even like straightforward drama, this is not going to be for you. But I'm going to go 3.5 stars for The Currents. I will mention one amazing sequence. There's several in this movie, but there's one in the last third, and her daughter and Lena loses track of her daughter because, like I said, she's always disassociating and focusing and like losing the world around her. And at one point, her daughter disappears from her workplace, and for probably, I don't know, a minute or so, Lena is freaking out and running around trying to find her daughter. And you're like, oh my gosh, is her daughter going to be lost? Is that going to be the last part of this movie? It turns out that the daughter has just climbed to the top of this building that they're in. And it's a very odd building. I don't know if it's a famous building or a known building in Buenos Aires, but it's essentially, not a dome, but almost like a tower on the top of this building. And at the very top, there's like a light, the rotating light, very much like a lighthouse. But it seems to be in the center of the city, so I don't think it's actually a lighthouse, but it's just like a lighthouse. And they both go up there, and they're looking across at the city. And there's an amazingly beautiful sequence. I would say for movie lovers, this sequence alone makes the movie at least worth recommending to check it out. Because it goes from this very contemplative, quiet, like I said, enigmatic, odd, beautiful movie to this very, almost like overly romanticized. I wouldn't say it's a dream sequence, but it's like this weird, almost like a flight of fancy or escape a point of view that she's having, where you're all of a sudden seeing all these different moments in the city, and the music itself gets very like lush and unusual compared to the rest of the movie, and you're seeing these different moments throughout the city from different points of view, and the light from that building is passing over those scenes as well. And eventually it rests on a certain house, and you find out later what that house is, and I think that's important for the rest of the plot. But this kind of, in some movies it would be a dream sequence. It isn't really a dream sequence, but this just tonally and presentation wise totally different sequence in the last third of the movie is really striking. And I want to love this movie, and I'm on the verge of loving this movie, but I think I'm, like I said, go 3.5 stars. I did quite enjoy this movie.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.